morning. Thank you for those of you who are joining me live here early on this Wednesday morning. And for those of you that are watching on replay, hello too. So I'm Helen Bartram, and I'm not going to bore you and give you an absolute background, loads of information, but what I am going to tell you is what I deem the important stuff for why I'm able to share what I'm sharing with you guys today. So I, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, I worked full-time in accounts. Yeah, boring. And I was training to be an accountant, and I think I just knew the whole time that it just wasn't for me. But you know, when you have bills and a family and kids and got used to the income, that I kind of just ignored the fact that it bored the life out of me. Until one day and I decided this isn't for me. So I literally just handed my notice in, and off I went to uni and explore what is for me and what have I got to give to the world. So I went and I learned lots of different things like psychology and counselling, and I found my place in a really holistic way in terms of meditation teacher, EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, if you haven't heard of it, and Reiki. So I'm a little bit woo-woo, but I'm also real science-backed heavy stuff. So although this topic, self-care and mindfulness, might not be the most appealing to you guys, I'll get into why it's actually really important and why you should make it important too. So once I'd gone and I'd done the whole learning who I am, what have I got to give to the world, as cheesy as that sounds, so bear with me, I actually then put all this stuff into practice. So since then, so for the last 4 years, I've been working hands-on running my own businesses. So I've done children's yoga, mindfulness and meditation in schools, in nurseries, in the community, because I'm really passionate about us being proactive about future generations around mental health, but also you guys and myself, leading by example totally, being proactive about my own well-being and mental health. And I know it's not the most exciting topic. I know it's probably, self-care feels like it's done a little bit of a death on socials, and maybe that's just my sponsored ads. But actually, I just think it's really important, and hopefully by the end of me chatting to you guys, you'll get the importance of that too. So I do one-to-one work with clients, so using all the kind of tools and stuff in my coaching business that I've learned. And I also run group coaching programs. I try to not make this stuff boring. I know the kind of going inwards and the healing, the emotions, it isn't the most appealing. It's not the most comfortable journey. But actually, as part of our human nature, growth is really important, and it feels good when we've done it. So I try to make it as non-boring as possible, and I'm very no bullshit approach. So you ain't going to get any kind of the fluffiness, although it probably sounds it. We're not doing that. And that I co-own a holistic training academy. So I actually train other people up in this stuff now, which is really exciting. So yeah. And then moving on to who I actually am. So that's kind of what brings me to you guys today in terms of I'm qualified to, I've got my own life experience, and then I've gone and put this stuff into practice. But actually I am a mum and to 2 gorgeous children, and a wife to a fellow toolboxer. I love the sunset. I love music, and I genuinely just love life because I've kind of found my alignment, I've found my path, and yeah, hopefully I can sprinkle some of that to you guys this morning. So yeah, that's me, my introduction. James, can these guys see my slides now?
Yes, your slides are up on the screen. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So if anybody has any questions, like James said, please drop them in the box. James, if you feel like it's important to jump in at that time, do so. I'm happy to take questions as we go, but also happy to hang fire till the end. Let's go. So jumping into self-care, like I said, it's probably not the most exciting topic. So thank you for those of you that have dragged your backsides out of bed to join me this morning, because I have a bit of a pet-hate relationship with self-care because I get the importance of it, but I also feel like we are massively missold what self-care is. And like I said, I feel like every other sponsored ad on my Facebook page is around self-care, and You could be forgiven that if your image of self-care is this lovely lady in a relaxing bath with candles and probably a personal development book and a gin and all the kind of sexy stuff that we're sold around self-care, and actually it irritates me a little bit because I feel like it gives people the impression of self-care being the sexy stuff when actually self-care isn't that sexy. It's actually quite difficult. And yeah, so for me, I like to reframe self-care in terms of taking care of self, because when we think about taking care of self, for me, it kind of diminishes all the other attachments that we have to self-care. And it's a little bit bonkers, right, that we live in a world where we have to consciously think about taking care of self. But also our programming and our conditioning in the world is to give to others, that it is selfish to look after ourselves. So although it's bonkers, it's actually really important that we do this. Why self-care matters to you? And like I say, I think it's one of them things where you kind of like, yeah, boring. Is it really that interesting? But here's why it matters to you. If you are a business owner, your well-being and your health, your mental health, your physical health should be your number one priority. And that might sound crazy because you're thinking about running of a business, providing for a family, or whatever your situation is. But actually, without your well-being, without your health, whether that's mental or physical, you can't provide for anybody. And like I say, we live in this world where it's potentially deemed as being selfish to take care of ourselves above other people. I run children's wellbeing training, and when I say to parents, you need to prioritise your wellbeing even above your children, it's a little bit like tumbleweed and everyone doesn't get it. But ultimately, if we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we even take care of our little people? Or how can we take care of our business, or whatever it is that you are doing your business for? It's so important that actually you recognise taking care of yourself should be a number one priority. And I think a lot of people are realising this. I'm seeing entrepreneurs every day posting on Facebook that they've been wiped out with COVID, and they've realised the importance of actually taking care of their health. And I think the last probably 18 months, we've all had a bit of an eye-opener about what are we prioritising, what are we allowing in our lives. And to me, that all boils down to taking care of ourselves. So every decision that you make should put yourself to the priority. These are, I'm just on my slides, the more bullet points, prompts for me. So if they come up and I've already covered it, please bear with me. I just get into flow and go. And actually, this whole non-negotiable thing, it's just true in terms of if you are running a business, if you are providing for other people, if you are a giver, if you are anything, just a bloody human, it should be a non-negotiable. Taking care of yourself should be a non-negotiable. Why we find it a bit icky is because of the kind of society and conditioning that we've had in the world to actually prioritise ourselves. And I think some people are getting it right, some people are getting aspects of it right, but it's rare that I see a balance of people taking care of themselves in terms of across the board. What do I mean by across the board? Well, that's emotionally. So actually emotionally being in tune and honouring our emotions. And I get that's not always comfortable. I get that, again, the world that we live in doesn't always allow for that. And there feels to be some kind of incongruency for me where we're talking about mental health, we're talking about getting people to open up about their emotions, but not necessarily providing a space and support when people do that. There's always judgment, there's always people pulling each other down. And as humanity, I think we're getting better at that. But I also think that it's things that we need to work on as individuals. So maybe just take this as a little reminder to you also that it's not just about you honouring your emotions and where you're at and you're taking care of yourself, but also when we see other people doing that too, for us to be really accepting of that and or supportive of there, if that makes sense. And then we've got the mentally. So actually mentally, how are we taking care of ourselves? What are we putting into our minds? How are we managing thoughts that are uncomfortable? And how are you aware of that? Because we have this mind, body and soul connection that actually when we have these thoughts playing over in our head that aren't the most helpful, shall we say, actually, sometimes we're not even aware of it because it's going on all day, every day. So even if right now you're thinking, I'm not even aware of the thoughts that I have, maybe just start being aware and tuning into that. And I get that everybody watching this is probably at different parts of their journey in each of these categories. So emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. That actually it's one, honouring where you're at, and two, just being really open. So if right now you haven't even thought about self-care or taking care of yourself, just being really open, and if you can take one little nugget away from this, then that's my job done. So yeah, emotionally is about honouring where you are at. And forgive me if this causes offence, but actually I think we're in this really weird place, especially for males in society, where we're expecting men to suddenly open up and talk about emotions and release emotions and all the stuff that probably our male ancestors have never done before. But all of a sudden we expect men to be able to do it. We're expecting a lot from men to show their masculine, but also show their feminine and their emotions. So I feel like we're in a bit of there's transition happening, should I say? But that doesn't mean it's comfortable and easy. So if right now you feel like you're getting more in tune with your emotions or more aware of them, but not comfortable enough to talk about them, then that is okay. I think once we have that awareness, after awareness will come action. And it's just about patience. It's just about, as we grow as a collective, as we grow as society, it's just being aware of it. So, and then mentally, so I'm aware that James, well, he's just played a motivational video. So it's just being aware of what you're putting in, what you're focusing on daily, who you're surrounding yourself with, who you feel great with, what's draining you, what are you doing that mentally is making you feel inspired and stimulated. Physically, what are you putting into your body? Water, nutrition, what movement are you getting? And these are all science-backed stuff. So simple things like moving, getting more water. And I know that this probably sounds like I'm teaching you all to suck eggs, but actually sometimes we just need reminding. It is early, bear with me. Sometimes we just need reminding, just have some more water. And I do myself, like I talk about this stuff and then I'll be like, oh crap, I haven't drank enough water today, and I feel it, I'm sluggish, I'm tired, I can't be bothered to do anything. But on the days when I'm drinking more water and I'm being aware of what I'm putting in my body and I've done some moving, I feel different. And I think that all this stuff is interlinked, everything knocks on. So if emotionally we're feeling a bit crappy, we could be forgiven for shoving a bloody bag of crisps or a chocolate bar in our mouth, and then I feel sluggish, so I'm probably not going to go for that walk, even though I'm aware that it will help me take care of myself and feel good. So one, just being aware of these things, and two, being aware how they're interlinked. And then spiritually, if that's a thing for you, I'm aware that it's not for everybody, but if you feel connected to source or religion or meditating, it's kind of like, how are you taking care of that? How are you nurturing that relationship, or whatever that looks like for you? So maybe right now you want to take a little think about what self-care looks like for you. And if you've got a notepad, what I would do is I'd just write down, what does self-care look like to me? And then maybe off the back of this call, just sit and have a look at how right now are you taking care of yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. You might want to make a little table, maybe that's just me being a little geek, and write how are you actually taking care of yourself. And if you feel like you don't know how you're taking care of yourself, drop me a message and I'll send you some prompts for how you can go. But actually, I guess to start with, just being aware of how you feel on the daily. In general, how do you feel most days? Because having studied psychology, scientists know a lot about disease and how crappy we feel, and anxiety and depression and all this stuff. And it's generally only been probably the last 20 years that we started focusing on the positive psychology. So things like gratitude, things like flourishing, things like feeling good, and understanding that more so. So actually it could be said that as we're growing as society, we're becoming aware of the stuff that helps us feel good. But what positive psychologists would say is that to flourish, to excel, to grow, whatever that is for you, our ratio of the good to bad needs to be higher. So if you are finding that most days you're feeling stressed, frustrated, anxious, not cool, whatever that looks like for you, what can we be doing to change that? But also being aware that not every day is going to be bloody rainbows, unicorns, glitters and all that jazz. It's about having balance. It's about this human experience and how can we take care of ourselves when shit hits the fan, but also how can most days we be doing stuff that lights us up and have a good routine and good balance of taking care of ourselves. What I would ask you to do is reflect on what else can you do to take care of yourself. So you might have a shit hot routine of taking care of yourself, and that's cool. But also you might be sat there now thinking, oh, I don't do any of this. And it's not to overwhelm. It's not for you to be like, shit, I'm really not taking care of myself. This is all too much. It's kind of what simple things can you do to take care of yourself? Can you be getting out for a little walk every day, getting out in nature? Simple stuff that's going to make you feel good. If you've got kids, get them outside. Like that's good for them and it's good for you. Are you switching your phone off at a certain time and having boundaries and saying no? Like, I think we live in this society where if you are like, no, I don't want to do that, it's a bit of a drama, but actually that's taking care of you. And when we think about taking care of you, it is this difficult stuff. It is the dropping the people pleasing and just saying, yeah, because I can't be asked to have a fight, or I can't be bothered with the backlash. But actually right now, I don't feel like doing that and I really need to protect my mental health. It's about you honouring where you're at and doing what's right for you. So having boundaries and saying no and getting out and walking and honouring where you're at. And actually, how many times do we swallow how we feel in terms of somebody's annoyed us or I'm really angry about that, but I don't know how to communicate that? Well, is that really taking care of yourself, or is that actually ignoring how you feel? And here's the thing, I don't want you to come off this call and go and be like, here's a list of things that have pissed me off for the last 3 years. But actually, if there's a way that you can release that emotion, write it down in a letter, release the anger, write it, and then burn it, let it go. Do that. Like, because what happens with emotions is that when we don't feel them and release them and we actually ignore them, that energy just stores in our body, so we're carrying it around with us and it will resurface. And we see it a lot in children and maybe female adults, where the slightest thing, and it's kind of that the straw that brought the camel's back. That's the saying, isn't it? It's kind of like that one thing, there's a tantrum, but actually it isn't that thing, it's the build-up of all the other things that then become overwhelming. So if we deal with things in the present, and if we take care of ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically and spiritually as we go through life, then we're avoiding that burnout, we're avoiding that overwhelm and building stuff up, we're avoiding having to distract and have alcohol at the end of the day because we can't deal with how we feel, so we'll just numb it. And the thing is, we live in this really stimulating world where it's so easy for us to distract from feeling pretty shit and not taking care of ourselves. And it's kind of like, should I do the hard work and should I set some boundaries and actually start honouring how I feel, getting up and having a walk, eating better, taking care of myself because I know that makes me feel better? Or should I have 4 cans of Stella and numb how I feel and just slouch on the sofa? And we live in this world where it's so easy for us to distract, so easy for us to disassociate from how we're truly feeling. And if you, well, I'm assuming you are a business owner. If you're a business owner, there's going to be days that are freaking testing. There's going to be days when you get home and you just want to go to the fridge and grab a beer or whatever it would be, instead of hitting the gym or going for a walk or, I don't know, shoving an apple in your gob. But the thing is, we've always got that very easy, quick fix. Phones is another one. I'm just going to avoid how I feel, so I'll go scroll on Facebook and probably make myself feel a bit shitter. So it's just being aware of all these things that you can change to actually start taking care of yourselves. And I get it. Maybe you do the scrolling on socials and then unconsciously we're doing the comparison thing and we feel shit. What I would ask you to do is on the daily now start being aware of how you feel with the tasks that you're doing. Because if it's that right now you feel like you're in a bit of a crappy place, everything feels overwhelming, I'm doing all the time, start being aware of what it is that actually makes you feel good and how can we implement more of that into your life. Start being aware of what it is that's making you feel crap, and is there a way to eliminate that or negotiate that so that it's not so much in your life or overwhelming. And ultimately all of this for me boils down to habits. I don't think that I'm very big on blending stuff into our normal life. So we're going to move on to mindfulness shortly. I don't think that you have to set loads of time aside for this stuff. I'm all about let's put it into our daily life. Maybe that's because I'm a busy mum of 2 children and a giant man-child. Maybe that's it. It's kind of like I'm busy. I don't have 3 hours to have a amazing morning or evening routine, so I want to implement this stuff and it become a habit. So taking care of you should become a habit. It should be your, I'm going to say second nature. Is that the right thing? It's very early. Please bear with me. It should become like second nature, and actually you should learn to prioritize yourself. And this isn't about being selfish, because I even found myself there going, prioritize yourself, but that's selfish because of conditioning. But I get it. It's kind of like, it's not about being selfish. Selfish is taking a chocolate cake to a party with 5 other people and that want some of my cake and eating the whole thing knowing they want it. That's selfish. But actually honouring how you feel and looking after yourself mentally, going for a walk, and that might invoke some difficult conversations. Having to say to a partner, I'm just going to go take 10-15 minutes and go for a little walk on my own to clear my head, or connect to self, like whatever kind of, without, I don't want to make it sound so cheesy, but I do that. I'll say to Neil all the time, I'm just going to go for a little drive and a walk on the beach I just want some space, like, and he gets that. But I think to start with, it's a little bit uncomfortable to suddenly start wanting some space or honouring how we feel or doing things differently, but it's just about being where you're at right now and taking little steps to take care of yourself, if that makes sense. So just being aware of habits, doing things like gratitude practice and where we're focusing on can actually start to nurture taking care of ourselves on the daily. Very easy. If anyone's got any questions about self-care, please put them in the box. And like I say, at the end of this, I'll give you my contact details so you can reach out. So if you literally sat there thinking, shit, I don't do any of this, what simple things can I do to start to take care of myself? I've listed some off, but if you want to drop me a message, then please do, and I'm happy to kind of give you some pointers, give you some personal pointers. Do that. Yes. So any questions, hit them in the box and we'll get them at the end, or James can show up, whatever we fancy. And that's going to bring me on to mindfulness. And again, it might be something that you've heard of, or maybe you practice mindfulness, maybe you're aware of it. We're probably going to see people at different ends of the spectrum, but what mindfulness is, again, in real simple terms, is just being aware, just being right here, present in the moment, aware of our surroundings. And for me, this ties in really nicely to self-care, because up until this point, maybe you didn't realise how exhausted you are, or maybe you didn't realise I'm actually storing a lot of pissed offness. Totally not a word, but I meant that, or anger, shall we say, the correct term. I'm actually storing a lot of that, or I haven't dealt with some grief, or whatever it is that you're kind of ignoring, because like I say, we have this busy world. Western society is so heavy doing, and we're misled to believe that keeping busy links to success. And actually, to me, it just links one-way street to burnout. But I get it, it's where we're at, and I'm seeing transition. We're kind of getting more of a balance of people becoming aware of being and doing. And what I mean by that is the doing, the keeping the busy, the kind of, right, take action, going to get these goals, going to achieve what I want, but then being really present and actually enjoying life. And for me, this whole being thing, this whole mindfulness and being aware is what life's about. So yes, it's bloody awesome to take action and to work towards your goals and start creating or living the dream, whatever that looks like for you. But how many people do we see that take the action, get that thing that they want, get the new Range Rover, get the villa abroad or whatever it is that's on their vision board, and still feel shit because they haven't dealt with something that happened? They haven't actually been aligned or attuned to themselves. They haven't taken care of themselves. They're probably going to burn out. They're probably not going to enjoy all the things that they've grafted their asses off to get. So for me, this taking care of self and this mindfulness, being aware of self and being aware of what we're doing and what we're wanting, more being alongside the doing, is what makes us enjoy the journey, what makes us enjoy the things that we actually achieve. Because, and I see it so much in this personal development world, people setting goals because of the circles that they're in, not because of what they actually want. Our goals should be an expression of self, not an expression of the circles that we keep. And I've done it. I fell into this trap, especially at the beginning of personal development world of, okay, this is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to do because I'm in circles and that's what everyone else is doing. And that is what I thought success was. Then when I became really connected to myself and started taking care of myself, tuning into myself, being really mindful of myself and the life that I want to create, I was like, there's no wonder I wasn't achieving them goals, because they weren't an expression of me. I didn't even want them. There was no desire. I was grafting, but there was absolute emotional block or something stopping me getting them because I didn't even want them. And that might sound like madness, but when I actually sat and looked at what I want in life, none of the stuff that I'd wrote was even there. So connecting to self and being aware and being mindful massively links into success and the life that we create. And maybe right now you're running a business and you're trying to hit a certain figure because it sounds like an amazing goal, but what does that even mean? I've interviewed on my podcast somebody who hit that kind of millionaire borderline and felt massively underwhelmed because they expected they were going to get this goal, they were going to be a millionaire, and all of a sudden it didn't feel like they thought it would feel, because what does it matter? So it's kind of like making stuff that matters to you, but in order to do that, you have to know you. So that's where mindfulness links into self-care. And actually, I've already spoke about how in this modern life, it can be so easy to not be aware of where we're at and who we are and what we actually like and what we want. So mindfulness is so important to kind of bring us into that, to make us start being aware. And it can be very simple in terms of one of the activities that I do is I ask somebody, and you can do this now, pick up something that's on your desk, pick up something that you look at every day. My mug, my giant coffee mug that's kept me going this morning, and just actually looking at it. Like, we're so busy doing that we don't even take notice of more stuff. How many times have we been like, oh, I've never actually noticed that that's silver before, or there's little seashell things on it. I think the seashell things are just a pretty pattern. Because I'm too busy ramming my coffee down my throat to move on to the next thing. So we're actually missing out on enjoying stuff. And I think it's real easy to do stuff as a ticky box exercise, but for me, get yourself to the beach or get yourself to the woods and just spend literally a few minutes and look around, listen, notice what the temperature's like, notice the colours, and just be really, really observant. For those of you that are going on James's Day, maybe you could implement some mindfulness into being in the woods and just being real present and just being aware of the colours. And you can do this right now. You can look around your room and think about, oh yeah, I've never actually noticed there's a ceiling that needs painting there, or because we're so busy doing. And for me, it's nurturing little moments of mindfulness into our day so that we enjoy the journey as much as the destination, if that makes sense. You can do this real simple when you get in the shower. Notice the temperature of the, what does the water feel like on me? What does the shampoo feel like? How does it smell? When you're eating, notice the different textures, the colours, the temperatures, the tastes. And when I say I don't think that we should make a big thing of this, and I'm not going to sit and have a full hour of mindfulness on a night, and I know some people do, so that's not mocking them, but I want to enjoy life every day in as many moments as possible. And when life feels overwhelming or throws us a curveball or feels challenging, because it's going to, actually I will notice the little moments of magic in the day, the little moments that I probably would miss if I was too busy being busy, doing the do on the hamster wheel, and not paying attention to my day. So for me, mindfulness should be injected throughout the day, and you can start doing that in very simple tasks, even brushing your teeth, washing your hands, washing up if we do that. I've got a dishwasher. But I used to wash up, and actually sometimes I still do, because I don't put out plastics in the dishwasher. And I'll just notice the temperature of the water. My friends at uni used to take the piss out of me because I used to say I would have a pretend spa day when I was washing up, and I would run the washing up bowl and make the water really warm and soapy and smell nice, and just be real mindful in that moment and notice how the plates feel when I clean them. And that's how I started my mindful journey. I would make daily chores really mindful and just be really there and present and enjoy that experience. And for me, mindfulness is just about building up little moments like that every time you wash your hands, being aware, stopping, pausing, emptying your brain from all that, I need to do this, I need to do that, and what about this, and I haven't called them back, I'm just going to text them. It's so easy for us to be busy because we've got this little device with us 24/7 that's constantly like, I'm just going to scroll, I need to text them, or so-and-so's ringing, I'm just going to drop this email, I'll send this quote. Laptop, how many times have you walked past your laptop and pinged it up and I'm just going to send a quote and then I'll be done. And it's so easy to miss out on life and stuff that is actually important to us, the stuff that we value, because we're not being mindful, we're not having them boundaries. And even when we are having them boundaries, we're not even fully there sometimes. We're not, if you're sat on the floor playing a board game with the kids or whatever that looks like, is your mind there? Or is your mind thinking, oh shit, I didn't pick that thing up from the suppliers, or I've got to send that invoice? Just being present and starting off with little nuggets of the day where you like, for this 30 seconds, I'm just going to be here. I'm not going to think about anything else. And the thing is, we can't control our thoughts. Stuff's going to pop up. But when they do pop up, instead of then going and taking the action, instead of being like, oh shit, I need to ring Steve. I need to tell Steve about this thing that happened today. I don't know who Steve is, by the way. Just actually being here and being like, okay, I can do that later. I'll make a note of it so don't forget, or I'll put a notes in my phone. And then I'm going to bring my attention back to being here with what's important to me. So taking care of you and mindfulness are massively linked, because we want to enjoy life. We want to get the most out of life. None of us get into business or start doing this journey, this entrepreneur journey, to not have a life and not enjoy the wealth that we are working hard to create, if that makes sense. So it's kind of just doing it side by side. It's taking the action, it's having the goals, but also being really self-aware of what you want in life and being really mindful so that when you switch off from work, you're there, you're present, and you're really enjoying it. And that is it, unless we have some questions.
Helen, do me a favor, answer one quick question for me, because you know my background to an extent, and you know that I am open to mindfulness. I'm open to self-care. I'm open to personal development, and I wasn't always. I wasn't, there was up to the point where I lost my business. I was typically the kind of person that you described, that person with the head down. I was constantly in the work. I was in that hamster wheel. I was building a business. and it was all about work, work, work. I lost the business. Everybody knows the story. Very briefly, I lost the business, got into a heck of a lot of debt trying to salvage that business, had to work my rear end to get out of that situation. And it was through all of that the toolbox grew and we realized what was going on. But it also, for me, I think personally, I grew as well, in the sense that I realized it can't all be just about, this isn't what life is about. And I sort of opened up a little bit more to this world of sort of self-care and personal development. But I think the question I was going to say was, why is there such a stigma attached to, we do it ourselves. You and I have done exactly the same thing. We apologize for being woo-woo. And why is it that we do that? And why is it that people look at it and don't think, actually, this is as important as lifting up those screwdrivers and going out to work. This is as important as managing the finances and taking care of the tax and taking care of the bills. And this is as important as putting out your quotes or writing up your certificate. This is a huge part, because if we're not right, and the one thing that came to mind when you were talking at the beginning about the mindfulness, sorry, not mindfulness, about the self-care, and I thought you would use the phrase, it's like being on a freaking airplane that's about to crash. If you don't take that oxygen mask yourself, if you don't look after you, you can't take care of anybody else around you. No matter how much of a hero you want to be, no matter how big you think you are, if you're not looking after yourself, once that plane goes down, if you haven't put that oxygen mask on, then you're of no good to anybody. And that's the same with you, your business, your life. If you're not taking care of you, you can't take care of your family, you can't take care of your spouse, you can't take care of your parents, you can't take care of anybody, because you're a mess yourself. So why is there such a stigma attached to it? I think that's the question. Sorry, I got off on a tangent again.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, that analogy is perfect. I terrified myself once by using it at a mum's group, and I was like, if you don't put that oxygen mask on first, your kids are going to watch you die. And then I was like, the facial expressions were like, shit, I'm not going to use that again. But that's the reality of it, is that actually that's going to happen. And whether it's that metaphorical on the plane thing, or actually coming home and running yourself into the ground. And it's always leading by example. So actually your kids are watching. Do you want them to watch you working 24/7? Is that what life is? But I think it massively comes down to this Western society that we're living in. If you go over to different places in the world where mindfulness and meditation is more welcomed, it's much more zen. There's much better balance of the doing and the being. But even if you think of everyone's conditioning and our ancestors, like my grandparents had shops, they literally worked their asses off until the day that they died, had a bunch of savings in the bank and done nothing with it, because they were in that mindset of work, work, work. And then my parents have done that. My dad takes the piss out of me because he's like, you don't have a real job because I've never seen you to be working. But I'm like, I've got balance. And I think that's it. It's kind of this stigma around taking care of ourselves, like, and not just busy doing because of future generations, because of our conditioning, and because of how we're programmed by society to view success. And I'm seeing transition. I'm massively seeing people being more open to balance and being, and not running themselves into the ground. But what I also see is that people don't take that action until they burn out. And I was the same. That happened to me when in 3 years ago, 2018, Neil's mum was terminally ill, my gran was terminally ill, my mum got diagnosed with breast cancer. I was a full-time student, I was running a business, I was a mum, I was a wife. The only reason that I really started a heavy spiritual journey was because I massively had a meltdown. And that's what I see, is that I was like, fuck, all this is too much. The world's too much. There has to be another way. So if I can just ask people to be open and curious about taking care of themselves and doing stuff different before we have that burnout, then that's a massive win. Because I think that what I see is probably 80% of people like me and you, James, get into the shit and we're like, oh, there has to be another way to live other than this. So if you are at the point where you're grafting your ass off, there is another way to live. There is better balance, but you have to do things differently to get that.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that I've picked up on it. Number one, the guys who know me know the score. Number one, I'm a freaking open book. Yeah. Because I've learned not to bottle things up. I've learned that, you know, the best kind of therapy in the world is talking therapy. It is just get it out there, get it off your chest, because by sharing stuff, you never know who's gone through a similar experience. You'll never know who's going to be able to give you one little nugget, or even just put an arm around you and say, you know what, this shit isn't going to last. But when you start to bottle up and internalize things, and here goes another woo-woo term, you know, it manifests itself in different ways. Like, you know, you use the word manifest and people start thinking, oh, woo-woo. But, you know, let's put that into practicalities. You're sitting there working your rear end off. You're trying to get all these quotes turned into actual business. That's a worry, that's a stress, especially if you can see the bank account depleting. So that's a worry and that's a stress. And then, you know, you've got your partner, your wife or your husband saying, well, actually, you know, you've said that you were going to decorate the kitchen, and that hasn't been. So that's a stress. And all these things are stacking up. And suddenly you're starting to get headaches, you know, and it's like you're ill. Well, why are you ill? You're ill because you're bottling in all of that stress, and you know, that's manifestation. And people think manifestation is just, oh, I've just created that out of the ether, but it's not. It is literally, you have manifested that state by building up that sort of stress in your body. And the thing is, you can manifest the opposite as well, because you can manifest happiness by actually thinking to yourself, right, what do I have to do mindfully to control this situation? And I do a lot of silly things, and here comes the woo-woo James now, yeah? But I do a lot of silly things. Every single morning, I will listen to a motivational video. I will choose a motivational video for 3 or 4 minutes of the morning, and I will listen to it. Quite often, when I'm in the shower, I will either have an audio book, an inspirational audio book playing, or an inspirational video, a motivational video playing. I find music as well. If I start to get a sort of a down mood, and you can feel it when you're feeling a bit, you know, everybody can have down days. I have particular songs. I've got one in particular. I'm not sharing with anybody. I've got one in particular that sort of takes me back to, you know, a time of my life. They call them anchors in NLP. But this is one particular song, one particular tune that takes me back to a time of my life where everything, the world was my fucking oyster. So if I feel myself starting to go like, oh, things are a bit, I'll play that song, and then within seconds, I'm like, yeah, things aren't that bad. Life can be good. So I think using things like music, using things like motivational videos, and one of the biggest things, I'm going to swear, learn to fucking say no. That is one of the biggest things. And I don't care whether that's your spouse, I don't care whether that's a customer, I don't care whether that's your children, I don't care whether that's your parents, relatives, you name it. If there's something that you are uncomfortable doing, or it's going to take away from something that you value more, do not say yes just to people please. Do not say yes just to win brownie points. Look at your own life, because you go away from it and you think, I said yes, and now I resent it. And you're doing it resentfully. Again, you're then bottling things up. Then you're building up, and your relationship with that person, whoever that person was, whether it was a customer, whether it was a spouse, whatever, your relationship deteriorates as well, because now you're doing things resentfully. You start feeling bad about that person, and you start internalizing that. Whereas if you just learn to say no, they will 9 times out of 10 respect the fact that whatever that request was, whatever that issue was, it wasn't for you. Whether that is the wife saying to you, should we go down to the beach this weekend? You go, well, actually, no, I actually wanted to watch the TT on television. You know, that's what I wanted to do. So, you know, you, by all means, jump in the car, take the kids and off to the beach. But I want to do, this is what I want to do for me. Don't go down to the beach with the wife and kids and feel like, oh, I didn't want to be here. I want to be watching TV on the TT. And yeah, but learn that your needs not necessarily always have to come first. Not, as you said, not in a selfish way. But you've got to be mindful that you're not bending all the time to other people, whether that is taking that job on, whether that is doing something for somebody, whether that is, you know, just learn to say no. Sorry, I've waffled on again. Do apologize.
Music is massive for me, so I agree. However, James, you can't tell us that you're an open book and then be like, I'm not telling you what the song is.
No, because then the only reason I'll do that is because people who know me know, yeah. But the thing is, I know my team in the toolbox. They will be playing it. They will be, yeah, I know.
Text me, I need to know. So that's massive, it is, in terms of changing state. And it's funny because we're using the term woo-woo, but actually this stuff is science now, and science is catching up with the woo-woo stuff. If you don't, that manifesting, it physically happens. If you bottle enough anger, it stores in your body. That energy physically stores in your body. It's science. It will then manifest into disease. It'll cause you pain. For instance, if you don't deal with anger, it'll store in your shoulder. You'll get a bad shoulder. And this is all turning out to be science. It's always been science, but proving stuff, it's catching up. So I think over the course of the next decade, we're going to see a lot of the stuff that we use as woo-woo showing up in science, and then probably being more accepted by the mainstream, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the other thing that you mentioned as well, which again a lot of people subconsciously do, and if they only didn't do it, their life could be hugely different as well, and that is comparisons. When you compare yourself to somebody else, or you compare your business to somebody else's business, or your situation in life, you know, like the neighbor has a brand new flash car. Why haven't I got it? You know, my sister has married a rich guy. Why didn't I marry somebody rich? You start building up that sort of, you know, somebody's got nine staff on the team. Why have I only got 2? And you start comparing yourself to other people. And the bottom line is you're not living other people's lives. You've got to live the life that makes you happy, the one that makes you fulfilled. Which brings us on to the other thing you talked about, which was goal setting. People setting goals for the sake of setting goals, absolutely ridiculous, you know. And we've seen it in the personal development world, where and you know, I say this now with love and respect for all of the people I've come across, but there's a huge number of people that I've met in that circle who spout one thing and live completely the opposite. So they talk about, you know, mindfulness, they'll talk about goal setting, they'll talk, and they don't apply it in their own lives, but yet they'll preach it. And you know, for somebody, we use a business situation. If I'm working with somebody one-on-one, typically it's, you know, what's the goal? What's the ambition? Right, I want to get off the tools. I want to run a successful business. I want to get off the tools. And then when you dig a bit deeper and you say, well, why do you want that? It's like there's no. I've only thought as far as getting off the tools. Yeah, you get the same question in the whole you know, personal development space. So what's the big dream? What's the goal? Oh, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to be on stage. I want to be like Tony Robbins, or what? And it's like, well, why? And there's no substance to behind it, you know. And if people just think about what is it you actually want out of life, what is it you want for you, then believe it or not, the goals that you're setting might not be the right goals to get you there. You know, to say, I want to make £1 million. Why do you want to make £1 million? Well, because it'll give me choices and I want to be happy. Well, what's stopping you from having choices today? What else could get you the choices that you want? What else? How else can you take that route to being happy? How else can you take that route to being free? Is the goal that you need 9 members of staff? Is the goal that you need to be off the tools? Is the goal that you know, we've had toolboxers who, when we've sat down and we've worked on with one-to-one, who were talking about, I've got to build a big business. I've got to do. Why do you want to do that? Well, I want freedom. I want to be off the tools and so on and so forth. Well, hang on a second. Couldn't you be doing all of this yourself by just working 3 days a week? Couldn't you, you know, by increasing your prices, by working less hours, you know, if you're not trying to build a big corporate entity and you need X amount of pounds to live and then X amount of pounds to pursue what it is that you want to do, then can you not use that vehicle to get you to where you want to be? Why do you need to be grinding all the time to get there? We had one toolboxer a couple of years back now, a number of years back now. Big ambition was to start painting, and it was a desire. And you know, the original goal was, I'm going to work my arse off. I'm going to build up a retirement fund, and I'm going to start painting. And it was like, well, you know, it's going to take you freaking years. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to, you know, will the body be riddled with arthritis? Will you have the time and energy to actually pursue what you want to do? So let's have a look. What's the other route to this? And the other route was to actually literally pack in being an electrician, you know, and that might sound contrary to me as a toolbox. I've just lost a customer, the answer for him was to stop being an electrician, to start painting, and to start charging for teaching people how to paint, and start earning a living that way, but while doing something he freaking well loved. You know,
that's my point, because I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's kind of along this whole missold thing is that we have to wait to get to a destination to have all the things that we want, when actually we can have it today. We can create more freedom and more happiness today. It's just the way we're missold that we have to, I guess we're driven a lot by the ego and the world rather than by our hearts, without sounding too fluffy.
Yeah. We could go on this all day long, and you know what? Again, if you're open to it, we will definitely have you back. And I think what I would love to see happen is for us to break down even into smaller chunks. You know, to give more time to things like, you know, goal setting, meditation, mindfulness. You know, all of these little things you could go on and on and on and on and on with. And I think in this environment, to explain to people that it's not woo-woo, it shouldn't have a stigma attached to it. You know, and we'll talk about stigma again, just James being open and honest here, and woo-woo, yeah. I do meditation. I do meditation most evenings. I won't say every single evening, but I do meditation most evenings. But you know what? When I'm talking about it, I won't call it meditation. I'll call it hypnosis. Why? Because hypnosis sounds a little bit more manly than meditation. But that's just the truth of it. But that is, you know, and the truth is, you know, for me, that is, I'm putting on an audio tape that has some background music, some subliminal messaging going on, and I'm relaxing with that. And it's typically either while I'm in bed or before I go to bed. And that's meditation. That is just clearing my head from the day's crap and sort of re-energizing myself. That's meditation. But, you know, if I'm talking to anybody, yeah, I listen to a hypnosis tape every night before I go to bed. That's it. Why do we do that, and why does it have that stigma? And I think we need to try and work towards getting rid of that and thinking, no, actually, the self is important, and I will use. And I think, you know, if you got that look of shock from those women in that room, that's exactly what you should be aiming for in our industry, anyways, to shock them into sort of, you know, that analogy of the gas on the plane. If you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. And ultimately, you just become a machine that's just generating money. And what's that money for? We tell ourselves it's to give ourselves more freedom, more happiness, and more choices. And the truth is, we have already got more freedom. If we want it, more happiness. If we want it, more choices. We just have to choose to do it. We just have to decide to do it.
I've got my socials, so if anybody wants to come follow me, I'm always chatting about this stuff. And again, if you don't feel like you could ask the question in this environment, then drop me a message. Like, I get that it's not always comfortable and cool for men to be so open and honest about this stuff, but I do just drop me a message and I can answer it.
No worries. Do you have a preferred channel for hooking up with you? Facebook, email?
My email address is on there. Whatever, Facebook, Instagram, whatever works for you guys. I'm across them channels, so I can pick them up.
Excellent stuff. Okay, with that said, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank all the members who made the effort to get here this morning as well.